Welcome back. So I've been using iPhone 14 Pro for about a week now, and coming from the 13 Pro, it's not a huge difference, but there are a ton of little upgrades that just are nice to have. Things like a brighter screen, better battery life, better cameras, and the dynamic island. Starting with the screen, this gets up to 2000 nits, so it's been really nice out in the sun. It's just a little easier to see for directions, checking notifications, and just generally using your phone outside. Apple said this is like the same brightness as a Pro Display XDR, which I don't have to compare with, but it has been a noticeable difference over the 13 Pro. And along with being brighter when you're using it, when you're not using it, the screen's now always on, which is definitely interesting, especially how they went about doing this. So unlike the Pixel, which turns the screen like mostly off with just a clock and some icons for notifications, the iPhone does pretty much the opposite. It just dims everything while preserving the colors and skin tones for your wallpaper, and honestly, it just kind of looks like your phone never turns off. There have already definitely been a few instances where I kind of catch my phone screen out of the corner of my eye, and I think it's on for some reason, so I reached down and grabbed it. But there's no new notifications, and it was just in its like off state. Now this might take some time to get used to, so be sure to subscribe down below for the full review. There are times though that the display actually fully turns off, like when you put it upside down or in your pocket. Also, if you're wearing an Apple Watch and your phone detects that you've like left the room, the screen turns off. Now I'm sure it's not a ton of battery being used by the always on display, but it is really cool to see that it adapts to these situations when you wouldn't even be able to see it. Speaking of battery life, it's not a huge increase over the 13 Pro, but it does definitely feel noticeably better. I feel like it's a bit early and I want to do some more like long-term testing, but I have been ending days at like 20 to 30% with kind of heavy use and not really charging throughout the day. Now moving on to the camera, I feel like this was the thing I was most excited about, since the best camera is the one that you always have on you. Starting with the main camera, it has a new 48 megapixel sensor, and I think the photos look great. For normal use, it bins down to 12 megapixels, so you get more light gathering ability and some more reasonable file sizes. But if you really want to, and you don't mind waiting a second for each photo to process, you can shoot in ProRAW for a full 48 megapixel photo that for some of the shots I've taken have pushed 100 megabits in file size. But you do have so much more flexibility. Personally, I have a habit of shooting photos and then later cropping down to get the exact framing that I want. And just being able to have some more space to crop into an image without losing some quality has been really nice to have. Also, there's still a ton of data in these images. So like when I was exposing for the sky, this is what the photo looked like straight out of camera, and this is what it looked like after I made a few adjustments. There were also some updates to the other cameras, so they all have faster apertures and the new photonic engine to really help you get more detail in low light, which is really nice to have, especially for macro mode on the ultra-wide camera, my personal favorite part of this entire camera system. Also, there's a new selfie camera that now has autofocus and also a faster aperture. I don't take many selfies just generally, but it's nice to have for like FaceTime and Be Real. And just for fun, I have a few photos here. So one of them is the selfie camera. Two of them are the main wide camera binned at 12 megapixels. And one of them is the main wide camera at a full 48 megapixel image. Go ahead and comment down below which one you think is a selfie camera. I personally found it kind of difficult, but let me know. But moving on to the other big update for the 14 Pro, the dynamic island. Now, I don't know how I feel about this name. It is fun to say, but I also don't like saying it. And it has definitely been really fun. Like the animations are super smooth and really well thought out. My personal favorite is when you close an app that goes up to dynamic island, like music or a timer, and it like catches it based on the angle that you throw it up there. I feel like this is just good attention to detail for just to make it more fun and playful. Like they definitely did not need to add physics to it. Also, there's no stutter in these animations. They're incredibly smooth and it like blurs the line between where the hardware ends and the software starts. Unless you're like out in the sun and looking at it, which has pretty much been the only times that I've been able to actually see the cutouts inside the dynamic island. But just from a few days of using it, it seems like a great way to embrace something like a section of the screen missing and turn it into a feature in a way that only Apple could do. I am interested in seeing though, like how third-party apps plug into the dynamic island and like what kind of information they put up there. I know the keynote had like flight trackers and sports scores, but it'd be fun to see what else that people can do. But these are just my initial thoughts after about a week of using the phone. There's so much more I want to try out, like action mode for video, which looks super interesting. So be sure to subscribe down below for the full review and other videos about tech, cameras, and making. Here's my video about the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and here's the video that YouTube thinks you're gonna like the best.